Welcome, traveler, to a journey not of myth, but of gritty, historical reality. Tonight, you will be transported to the brutal heart of Birmingham in 1890, a city suffocating under the smoke of the Industrial Revolution. You are not a hero of legend, but an ordinary man forced to survive in an unforgiving world, a member of the most feared gang in the city, the Peaky Blinders. This isn't a romanticized tale of crime. It's a profound descent into the depths of human resilience, where loyalty is a matter of life and death, and every choice leaves a scar. The basement. You wake up on the cold concrete floor of a dark basement somewhere in rural Georgia. The air is thick with the scent of decay and old smoke, a constant, sharp reminder that the world you once knew died 43 days ago. Your clothes, the same ones you have worn for a week, cling to your body with a mix of sweat, grime, and stains you prefer not to identify. The throbbing headache you feel isn't just from a lack of food or constant dehydration. It's the psychological weight of having watched your hometown become a walking cemetery, of having lost everyone you loved, of having been forced to do things you never imagined you were capable of, just to breathe another day. You remember the day it all began perfectly. You were at work complaining about the bad coffee from the machine when the first news came over the radio. Outbreak of violence in Atlanta, they said. People attacking other people. You laughed. Then, thinking it was just another sensationalist story. How wrong you were. Now, 10 feet above your head, you can hear the shuffling footsteps of the dead. They've discovered that someone has been using this basement as a shelter and have been circling the abandoned building for 2 days. You count at least 6 different pairs of feet by the rhythm and weight of their steps. 6 undead who would love nothing more than to turn you into one of them, into their last meal. Your last real meal was 4 days ago, a can of beans found in the rubble of a ransacked house. Since then, you've survived on dirty water from a rain puddle and some leaves you hoped weren't poisonous. Your stomach doesn't just ache from hunger. It feels like it's devouring itself from the inside out. The improvised axe beside you is your only protection. You made it by tying a metal blade from a destroyed car to a broken broom handle with wire found in the trash. It's not much, but it has saved your life 3 times already. You feel the familiar weight of the tool in your calloused hands. Hands that were once soft and typed on computers, but now intimately know the violence required to survive. Sarah is sleeping, leaning against the opposite wall. You found her 2 days ago, tied up in the storage room of an abandoned gas station, about to be violated and killed by 3 men you had to kill to save her. She still wakes up screaming every night, reliving the trauma. You understand the feeling. Your own. Nightmares are populated by the faces of people you were forced to leave behind. The decision to save her was simultaneously the most human and most stupid thing you've done since the apocalypse began. Human, because you couldn't just walk away and let her die. Stupid, because now you have to find food for 2 people. You have to move slower. You have to deal with her nightly screams that could attract walkers. But there is something comforting in not being completely alone. In the last 43 days, you've talked more to inanimate objects than to human beings. Your own voice had started to sound strange, hoarse, and weak from lack of use. With Sarah here, you at least remember what it's like to have a conversation, even if it's whispered and full of fear. You get up slowly, trying not to make a sound that could alert the dead upstairs. Every move is calculated. Every step is planned. You've learned that survival isn't about courage or strength. It's about patience, caution, and the willingness to do anything necessary to see another sunrise. The water you have will last another day, maybe 2 if you ration it severely. The food ran out yesterday. This means you need to get out of this hiding place soon. No matter how many walkers are waiting upstairs, staying here means slowly dying of thirst and hunger. Leaving means possibly dying quickly, being devoured. These aren't choices anyone should have to make, but this is the world now. You walk silently to the small basement window and peek through the grime on the glass. Outside, you can see the legs of at least 4 walkers aimlessly pacing the yard. One of them is wearing what's left of a nurse's uniform. Another is wearing torn jeans and a bloody t-shirt that reads, "World's Best Dad." Each of them was once a person with dreams, fears, and families. Now they are just predators, driven by a primitive instinct to consume human flesh. Tsau. Trust, lies, and the open road. Sarah stirs in her sleep and mumbles something, unintelligible. You approach and notice that she's sweating despite the cold. A fever. In the old world, a fever would be treated with drugstore medicine and a few days of rest. Here, it can be a death sentence. You don't have antibiotics, painkillers, or even a thermometer to monitor her condition. You place your hand on her forehead and feel the heat radiating from her skin. She's definitely feverish. It could just be stress and dehydration. Or it could be an infection from one of the cuts she suffered during her captivity. Or worse, it could be a bite she's hidden from you. You've seen people hide bites before, denying reality until it was too late. Paranoia is justified in the apocalypse. Trusting the wrong person means death. Not trusting the right person can also mean death. You're constantly weighing risks, calculating probabilities, trying to read people's intentions in their eyes. Sarah seems genuine, but you thought the same about Marcos. Marcos was a middle-aged man you met 3 weeks ago. He seemed harmless. He said he was a teacher before the apocalypse, that he just wanted to find his daughter in Atlanta. You traveled together for 5 days. He shared his food, helped set up camps, and even made occasional jokes that reminded you of the lost normalcy. On the 6th morning, you woke up, and he was gone, along with your backpack, your water, and half the food you had. You never saw him again, but you learned a valuable lesson. In the apocalypse, even seemingly, good people are capable of betrayal when survival is at stake. You gently touch Sarah's shoulder to wake her up. "Sarah," you whisper, "how are you feeling?" She opens her eyes slowly, disoriented for a moment, before remembering where she is. "I'm fine," she lies, but you can see in her eyes that it's not true. "You have a fever," you say. "I need to check for any infected wounds." "It's nothing," she insists, but her voice is weak. You have no choice but to trust her for now, forcing her to show. Possible wounds could cause a confrontation that would attract walkers, but you keep the axe within reach just in case. Outside, the sound of shuffling footsteps gradually diminishes. The walkers are moving away, probably attracted by some distant sound. This might be your only chance to escape. "We need to go," you whisper now. Sarah gets up with difficulty, leaning against the wall. She's clearly weak, but she tries to hide it. You grab your almost empty backpack and check the axe one last time. You slowly climb the wooden stairs that creak dangerously with each step. At the basement door, you stop and listen carefully. Silence. You open the door slowly and peek inside the abandoned house. The house was once someone's home. Family photos still decorate some walls. Children's toys are scattered on the living room floor. There are dried bloodstains on the carpet and claw marks on the walls, evidence of a desperate struggle that the former residents lost. You move through the house. Like a ghost, Sarah right behind you. Every step is calculated. Every breath is controlled. In the kitchen, you find a meat knife that is still sharp, a better weapon than the improvised axe for close combat. Through the front window, you can see that the street is relatively clear. Only 2 walkers wander at a safe distance. An abandoned truck in the driveway offers partial cover for an escape. "Let's go out the back door," you whisper to Sarah. "Stay low and follow my lead." You exit the house, silently. The cool morning air is a relief after 2 days in the stuffy basement, but you can't afford to enjoy it. Survival means constant movement, constant vigilance. The backyard leads to a small forest that can offer cover, but forests can also hide walkers, and the sound of twigs breaking underfoot can alert any dead nearby. Every option has risks. You move towards the trees when Sarah stumbles and falls. The sound echoes through the silent yard like a gunshot. Immediately, you hear groans in response. The walkers have detected sound and movement. "Get up!" you whisper urgently, helping Sarah to her feet. But it's too late. 3 walkers emerge from behind the house, their dead eyes fixed on you. One is an elderly woman in a bathrobe, half her face torn off. Another is a teenager in a school uniform, his chest opened and ribs exposed. The third is indefinable, too decomposed to determine age or gender. You brandish the axe and position yourself between Sarah and the dead. Stay. Behind me, you order. The first walker approaches. You swing the axe in a wide arc, hitting the side of the elderly woman's head. The skull splits with a nauseating sound, like a watermelon being crushed, and she collapses. The teenager moves faster than expected. You barely manage to pull back before his rotting hands try to grab you. The smell of decomposition is unbearable up close, a mix of putrid meat and bodily fluids that makes your eyes water. You strike a blow to his neck, but the axe gets stuck in the bone. The walker keeps moving, ignoring the wound that would be fatal to a living person. You desperately pull on the axe as he gets closer. Sarah screams behind you. You turn and see that the third walker has cornered her against the backyard fence. She has a rock in her hand, trying to keep him at a distance, but it's only a matter of time. You manage to release the axe with a violent tug, knocking the teenage walker down in the process. You quickly turn around and bury the blade in the top of the head of the walker that was attacking Sarah. He collapses instantly, but the noise of the fight has attracted more. You can hear groans coming from several directions. You have minutes, maybe seconds, before you are surrounded. "The forest! Now!" you scream, abandoning any attempt at silence. You run towards the trees as more walkers emerge from nearby houses. One of them is dangerously close, a man in work clothes with half an arm missing. You knock him down with a shove and keep running. The forest offers cover, but it also makes it difficult to see approaching threats. Branches scratch your faces and clothes as you make your way through the dense vegetation. Sarah is struggling to keep up, her breathing heavy and irregular. After what feels like an eternity of running, you stop behind a large fallen tree. The sound of groans is more distant now, but still audible. You're not safe, just momentarily hidden. 3. A temporary refuge. "I can't anymore," Sarah pants, doubling over in exhaustion. You quickly check the surroundings. There's a small hunting cabin about 100 yards ahead, half hidden among the trees. It could be a temporary refuge, or it could be a death trap full of walkers. "See that cabin?" You point. "Let's check if it's clear." You cautiously approach the wooden structure. It's small, maybe 2 rooms with broken windows and a half-open door. There are no obvious signs of walkers, but that means nothing. You peek through the window. The interior is dark, but it seems empty. A overturned table, some cans scattered on the floor, a stone fireplace long since extinguished. "Stay here," you whisper to Sarah. "I'll check." You enter the door slowly, axe in hand. The wooden floor creaks under your feet, but there's no response. A quick check confirms that the cabin is empty, at least of immediate threats. "It's clear," you call to Sarah. She stumbles in and immediately sits heavily on the floor. Her color is pale and sweat is running down her face despite the cold. "Sarah, I need you to be honest with me," you say, closing the door and checking the windows. "Were you bitten?" "No," she answers too quickly. "Can I trust you?" You continue. "Because if you were bitten and are hiding it, we're both going to die." She looks you in the eyes for a long moment. "I wasn't bitten, I swear." You want to believe her, but trust is an expensive luxury in the apocalypse. You decide to monitor her closely while you search the cabin for supplies. A quick search reveals some valuable discoveries: a can of soup, dented but not expired, a half-full bottle of water, and a bottle of aspirin. It's not much, but it's enough to keep you alive for another day. "Here," you offer 2 aspirins to Sarah. "This might help with the fever." She accepts gratefully and takes the pills with a small sip of water. Outside, you can still hear the distant groans of the walkers, looking for you. They will find the cabin eventually. They always find you. But for now, you have a few moments to rest and plan the next move. You sit near the window, keeping watch while Sarah rests. Fatigue pulls your eyelids down, but you fight against sleep. Falling asleep could mean never waking up again. Through the dirty window, you watch the trees swaying gently in the breeze. It's almost peaceful if you ignore the terrible context. For a moment, you allow yourself to imagine what it would be like if the world hadn't ended. Maybe you'd be home watching TV, complaining about traffic, planning the weekend. These memories hurt more than any physical wound. They are cruel reminders of everything that was lost, of a life that will never exist again. You've learned to push them away, to focus only on the present moment, on the next decision you need to make to stay alive. Sarah has fallen asleep leaning against the wall. Her lips are slightly blue and she's trembling even in her sleep. The fever is getting worse. You need to find antibiotics or at least a warmer place for her to recover. There are rumors of a survivor camp about 12 miles north. Supposedly, they have a doctor, medical supplies, and even regular food. But rumors in the apocalypse are often exaggerated or completely false. Desperate people see hope where there is none. Still, it might be Sarah's best option. Staying here means watching her slowly get worse. Trying to reach the camp is risky, but at least there's a chance of saving her. You hear a branch breaking outside. Your entire body tenses as you peek through the window. Nothing. But in the apocalypse, nothing can be more dangerous than something. Walkers make constant noise. Humans can be silent when they want to be. You gently wake Sarah. "We need to go," you whisper now. She opens her eyes with difficulty, still disoriented by the fever. "What is it?" "It might be nothing, but we can't take the risk." You quickly gather your few possessions. You help Sarah to her feet and notice she's even weaker than before. The fever is rapidly consuming her energy reserves. You exit through the back door of the cabin and into the forest again. The sun is higher now, filtering through the leaves and creating patterns of light and shadow that can hide threats. You walk for about an hour, stopping frequently for Sarah to rest. Every pause is a risk. Staying still means being found, but she simply can't keep up the pace. IV. Predators and sacrifices. Then you hear human voices echoing through the trees. "I saw footprints around here. They can't be far. When we find them, the man is ours. The woman goes to Jake first." Your blood runs cold. These aren't friendly survivors. These are the voices of human predators, possibly the same men who held Sarah prisoner before you killed them. No, wait. You killed 3 men. These are different voices. This means there were more of them, or they are a completely different group of bad people. In the apocalypse, there seems to be an endless supply of humans willing to harm other humans. You grab Sarah's arm and point to a dense thicket. "Hide in there," you whisper. "No matter what happens, don't come out until I come back. And if I don't come back, then wait until dark and go north. There's supposed to be a survivor camp there." You help her hide among the bushes. Then you position yourself behind a large tree with your axe ready. The voices are getting closer. 3 men emerge from the trees. They are well armed, rifles, pistols, knives. Their clothes are too clean, which means they have a safe place to go back to. Resources, organization. This makes them far more dangerous than desperate survivors. "The footprints stop here," says the first man, a tall, skinny guy with a scar running across his face. "They can't have just disappeared," responds the second, shorter and fat, with tattoos covering his arms. "Maybe they climbed a tree," the third, younger than the other 2, suggests. You count your options. 3 against 1, better armed, possibly, more experienced in combat. Your chances in a direct confrontation are minimal, but if they find Sarah, she's dead anyway. The scarred man approaches dangerously close to the bushes where Sarah is hidden. "Hey!" he suddenly yells. "Come on out! We know you're in there!" Silence. "If you come out now, maybe we'll be nice. If we have to look for you, we're going to have a lot more fun when we find you." You make a decision. It's better to reveal your position and draw attention away from Sarah than to let them find her. "I'm here!" you yell, stepping out from behind the tree with your hands up, but still holding the axe. The three men turn in your direction, rifles pointed at you. "Look at that," the scarred man says, smiling. "One of the little pigs decided to show up." "Where's the woman?" the fat one asks. "What woman?" You lie. "Don't play with us," the young man says. "We saw 2 sets of footprints." "She died yesterday," you say. "Fever." The scarred man studies your face, looking for signs of a lie. "Where's the body?" "I left it for the walkers. Didn't want to carry dead weight." They seem to consider this. In the apocalypse, abandoning the dead is common practice. "Well," the fat one says, "then you'll have to be entertainment enough." They start to approach. Rifles still pointed in your direction. You calculate distances, escape angles. With 3 rifles trained on you, your options are extremely limited. You say, trying to buy time. "You guys seem to have a good thing going here. Clean clothes, quality weapons. I bet you have a safe place to go back to." "That's right," the scarred man responds. "And we're always looking for new members, especially ones who know how to fight." "How do you know I know how to fight?" 3 of our men are dead at a gas station 10 miles from here, axe wounds, and you're carrying an axe. So these are indeed partners of the men you killed. That explains how they found your footprints so quickly. "They were going to rape a woman," you say. "I couldn't let that happen." "Noble," the fat one sneers, "but stupid. Our group has rules about property. They found her first. People aren't property in our world. They are now. The conversation is coming to an end. You can feel it. Soon they'll decide you're too much trouble to recruit and too dangerous to leave alive." The young man takes a step to the side, creating a small opening between them. It's a minimal opportunity, but it might be the only one you'll get. You throw yourself to the right at the exact moment you hurl the axe in the young man's direction. The blade hits his shoulder, making him scream and drop his rifle. The other 2 fire, but you're already moving. One bullet whizzes past your ear, the other hits the tree behind you. You roll behind a thick tree as they reload. The young man is on the ground, groaning and trying to remove the axe from his shoulder. "Son of a bitch!" the fat one yells. "I'll make you pay for that!" You need a weapon. The young man's rifle is on the ground about 10 yards from your position. You might be able to reach it if you can distract the other 2. "Hey!" you yell. "You really want to know where that woman is?" "Where?" the scarred one responds. "If I tell you, will you let me go?" "Of course," he lies. You obviously don't believe him. You grab a rock and throw it to the left, creating a noise among the bushes. You immediately run in the opposite direction towards the fallen rifle. They realize the trick too quickly and start shooting. You throw yourself to the ground and roll, grabbing the rifle and aiming back. Your first bullet hits the fat one in the chest. He falls backward, rifle flying from his hands. Your second bullet misses the scarred man by inches. He takes cover behind a tree and yells back at you. "You're just delaying the inevitable. We have 20 more men at our camp." "Then you won't miss 3, you reply, reloading. The young man has managed to remove the axe and is trying to crawl to cover, leaving a trail of blood. You have a clear line of sight on him, but something stops you from shooting a wounded, unarmed man. This hesitation almost costs you your life. The scarred man took advantage of your distraction to change position and now has a clear angle on you. You throw yourself to the side at the exact moment he shoots. The bullet rips off pieces of bark from the tree where your head was a second before. You're in a standoff for several minutes, each waiting for the other to make a mistake. But then you realize that the noise of the shots might have attracted walkers. Staying here for too long could be fatal for both of you. "Last chance," you yell. "Leave now and everyone gets out alive." "Can't do that," he replies. "You killed our people. There have to be consequences." You hear something that makes your heart race, the distant sound of groans getting closer. The walkers are coming, attracted by the noise of the fight. You hear, "That?" you yell. "I hear it," he says. "More reason to end this quickly." He steps out of cover in a desperate attempt to hit you before the walkers arrive. You are ready, and your bullet hits him in the center of the chest. He falls immediately. The wounded young man is trying to crawl away, but the blood and noise he's making will attract the walkers directly to him. You consider helping him, but the groans are getting louder and closer. You run back to where Sarah is hidden. Sarah, we need to... Get out of here now! She emerges from the bushes, pale and trembling. What happened? I heard shots. I'll explain later, you say. Walkers are coming. You start running through the forest again, leaving behind the bodies and the wounded young man who will likely be devoured in minutes. Behind you, you can hear human screams mixed with inhuman groans. The young man found the walkers, or the walkers found him. V. A promise to the dead. You run until you can't anymore. Then you stop to catch your breath behind a large rock outcrop. Sarah is in even worse condition. Her breathing is shallow and rapid. I can't anymore, she says, sliding to the ground. You check her pulse. It's fast and weak. The fever is getting worse, and the physical exertion of the escape didn't help. Sarah, I need to know the truth, you say. Were you bitten? She looks at you with tears in her eyes. It wasn't a bite, she whispers. What was it then? One of the men, she says. He cut me with a dirty knife. Said if I didn't cooperate, he'd infect me on purpose. She lifts her shirt sleeve and shows a deep cut on her forearm, clearly infected. The skin around it is red and swollen, with dark streaks spreading towards her shoulder. Why didn't you tell me before? Because you would have left me behind. She's right. You probably would have. In the apocalypse, infection is almost always a death sentence, and traveling with someone condemned is suicide. But now that you've spent 2 days with her, that you've risked your life to save her, that you've seen her as a person and not just a burden, the decision is no longer so simple. Is there anything we can do? You ask. Antibiotics might help, but she shakes her head. What if we amputate the arm? It might be too late, and you're not a surgeon. You sit in silence for a moment, both contemplating the inevitable reality. How much time? You ask. A day, maybe 2. Depends on how fast the infection spreads. The survivor camp might still have antibiotics, but it's almost a day's walk away. Sarah doesn't have the strength to make that journey, and carrying her would be impossible without attracting unwanted attention. One thing, she says softly. What? When the time comes, don't let me turn, please. You understand what she's asking for. It's a favor people do for those they love in the apocalypse, a last kindness before humanity is lost forever. It's not going to come to that, you lie. We'll find antibiotics. But you both know it's not true. The sun is beginning to set, staining the sky red through the trees. In a few hours it will be completely dark, and traveling at night is almost suicide. You need to find shelter for the night. You help Sarah to her feet, and you continue walking slowly through the forest. Every step is a struggle for her, but she keeps moving through sheer willpower. After an hour, you find a small natural cave at the base of a rocky cliff. It's just big enough for 2 people, but it offers protection from the elements and is easily defensible. You help Sarah settle into the back of the cave and check the entrance. There are no signs of walkers or other humans in the area. We'll spend the night here, you say. Tomorrow, we'll continue towards the camp. Sarah smiles weakly. You both know she probably won't see another sunrise, but she appreciates the gentle lie. As darkness settles, you sit at the entrance of the cave, rifle in hand, keeping watch. Sarah sleeps fitfully behind you, murmuring occasionally in her feverish dreams. The stars appear one by one in the dark sky. There's something comforting in their constancy. In the midst of all the chaos and death, they continue to shine, as they always have. You wonder if there are other survivors looking at the same stars, feeling the same cosmic loneliness. A soft sound behind you makes you turn around. Sarah is awake, looking at you with eyes bright from the fever. "Thank you," she whispers. "For what?" "For not leaving me alone, for giving me a few days of hope." "You still have hope?" "We'll get to the camp tomorrow." She shakes her head slowly. "It's okay. I know how this ends. Just thank you for allowing me to die as a person, not as a monster." You don't know what to say. So you just take her hand and squeeze it. Her skin is too hot, but she squeezes back with the little strength she still has. "Tell me about your life before," she asks. "Before all this." So you tell her about your boring but secure job, about your small but cozy apartment, about plans you made that never came to fruition, things that seemed important at the time but now seem trivial in the face of mortality. Sarah listens with her eyes closed, occasionally smiling when you mention particular details. It's comforting for both of you to remember that you were once people, not just survivors. When you finish, she shares her own memories. She was an art student. She dreamed of having her paintings in galleries someday. She had a boyfriend she planned to marry after graduation. She had parents who supported her in everything. All that is gone now. Of course, the boyfriend is probably dead. The parents are definitely dead. She saw them being devoured when it all began. The artistic dreams are irrelevant in a world where the only art that matters is the art of killing the dead and staying alive. But for a few precious minutes in the dark cave, you can pretend you're just two normal people, having a normal conversation about normal lives. Then Sarah falls silent, and you think she's fallen asleep again. But a few minutes later, she speaks one last time. "When I die," she whispers, "I want you to keep going. Go to the camp. Find other people. Don't give up just because I couldn't." "You're not going to die," you lie. "Promise me." You're silent for a long moment. "I promise," you say. She smiles and closes her eyes. This time she really falls asleep. You continue your vigil through the night, watching her breathing become shallower and shallower, feeling her temperature rise. Around 3 a.m., she stops murmuring. Around 5 a.m., she stops moving completely. You check her pulse and find nothing. Sarah died peacefully in her sleep, spared the horrible transformation that awaits most victims of the apocalypse. It's a small mercy in a world that offers few. You sit next to her body for a few minutes, processing the loss. In just 3 days, you became attached to her in a way you didn't expect. She represented hope, humanity, a connection to something beyond mere survival. Now you're alone again. You take the knife you found in the abandoned house and position it over Sarah's temple. It's necessary to destroy the brain before she reanimates as a walker. It's the last kindness you can offer. The blade penetrates easily. Sarah didn't feel a thing. You drag the body outside the cave and cover it with stones, creating a makeshift grave. It's not much, but it's more than most people get. In the apocalypse, when the sun rises, you gather your few belongings and continue north towards the rumored survivor camp. You promised Sarah you would keep going, and promises to the dead are the most sacred of all. Fakes. Rumors and ruins. The journey to the camp takes the whole day. You avoid main roads, sticking to forests and fields whenever possible. Several times you have to hide from groups of walkers, and once from another group of humans who seem hostile. When you finally reach the location that was described in the rumors, you find only burned rubble and scattered bodies. The camp was attacked, probably weeks ago. There are no survivors, no supplies, no hope. You sit in the rubble as the sun sets again, contemplating your options. You can continue looking for other camps, other groups of survivors. You can try to survive alone indefinitely, or you can just give up here and let the apocalypse take you too. But then you remember the promise you made to Sarah. She wanted you to keep going, to find other people, not to give up. So you get up, adjust your backpack, and start walking again. Where to, you don't know, but you'll keep moving, keep surviving, keep looking for some sign that humanity still exists somewhere. Because in the end, That's all anyone can do in the apocalypse. Keep walking until you can't anymore. And then walk a little more. The road stretches ahead of you, dark and uncertain, but you follow it anyway, because the alternative is to give up. And you're not ready for that yet. Not yet. You walk for 3 days through unknown territory, surviving on rainwater collected in makeshift containers and some roots that you hope aren't poisonous. Your strength is quickly draining. The constant vigilance, the lack of adequate sleep, and malnutrition are taking their toll. On the morning of the 4th day, you see smoke rising on the horizon. Smoke can mean people, but it can also mean danger. In the apocalypse, humans can be more dangerous than the dead themselves. But you have no choice. Your water reserves are running out, and you need to find supplies soon, or you'll die anyway. You cautiously approach the source of the smoke, staying in the dense vegetation to avoid detection. What you find is unexpected. A small, fortified farm with high barbed wire fences and makeshift observation towers. There are people moving within the perimeter. Living people, not walkers. You watch for hours, trying to determine if they are hostile or friendly. You see children playing in an inner courtyard, women working in a vegetable garden, men patrolling the perimeter. It seems legitimate, but you've learned to be skeptical of appearances. Then you see something that makes your blood run cold. 2 men are dragging a tied-up woman across the yard. As she screams and struggles, they throw her into a structure that looks like a makeshift prison. Other tied-up figures are visible through the bars. It's not a survivor refuge. It's a slave camp. You're about to turn away when you hear a familiar voice yelling from the prison. "It can't be," you murmur. But it is. It's the voice of Marcos, the man who traveled with you for 5 days before stealing your supplies and disappearing. Your first instinct is to leave. Marcos betrayed you, stole your food and water when you needed it most. He deserves whatever fate he found here. But then you remember the promise you made to Sarah, to remain human, not to give up on compassion completely. You move around the perimeter, looking for a weak spot in the defenses. The farm is well fortified against walkers, but not against determined humans. There's a section of the back fence where the vegetation has grown high enough to offer cover. At night, you approach the fence. The barbed wire cuts your hands as you create a small opening, but you ignore the pain. You manage to squeeze through the hole and find yourself inside the perimeter. The prison is on the other side of the yard, guarded by 2 armed men who are talking quietly and occasionally drinking from a shared bottle. You'll need to neutralize them silently. You move through the shadows, using the cover provided by several farm buildings. The first guard has his back to you, focused on the conversation with his partner. You approach from behind and strangle him with your arm, cutting off the blood flow to the brain. He passes out in seconds. The second guard turns when he hears a soft noise, but you're already moving. A sharp blow to his temple with the handle of your axe knocks him unconscious. You drag the 2 bodies into the shadows and take the prison keys. "Marcos," you whisper through the bars. Several figures move in the darkness of the cell. "Who's there?" a voice responds. "Is that you, Marcos? The teacher who was looking for his daughter?" "Yeah, it's me. Who wants to know?" "Someone you stole from a few weeks ago." Silence. "Listen," Marcos finally says. "I can explain. I was desperate. You..." Interrupt him, opening the cell. "We need to get out of here now." There are 5 people in the prison: Marcos, 2 women, an elderly man, and a teenager. They all look malnourished and bruised. "Who are you?" you ask the other people. "Survivors they captured," one of the women replies. "They make us work in the fields during the day and lock us up at night." "How long?" you ask. "I've been here for 2 months," the elderly man says. "There's a way out at the back of the farm," you explain, quickly. "I'll show you the way, but we need to move in silence." You guide the group through the shadows, retracing your path to the fence. But when you get there, you discover that the opening you made has been discovered and repaired. Worse yet, there are now 3 guards patrolling the area. "Shit," you murmur. "Now what?" Marcos whispers. you study the situation. The main fence is too well lit and guarded, but there's a nearby barn that might offer enough height to climb over the fence. Over there, you whisper. Follow me. You move towards the barn, but the teenager trips over an empty can. The noise echoes through the silent yard. What was that? One of the guards yells. Flashlights begin to sweep the area. In seconds, you'll be discovered. Run! You yell, abandoning any attempt at silence. The group runs towards the barn as alert shouts echo across the farm. You manage to reach the structure before the guards, but now the whole farm is awake and mobilizing. Up! You order, pointing to a ladder that leads to the barn loft. The group climbs quickly. From the loft, there's a window that opens directly over the outer fence. It's a fall of about 12 feet, but it's preferable to being recaptured. I'll go first, you say, preparing to jump. Wait, Marco says. Why are you doing this after what I did to you? Because someone once told me not to give up on being human, you reply, and you jump. You land heavily on the other side of the fence, feeling a sharp pain in your left ankle, but nothing seems broken. One by one, the other people jump and you help them to their feet. Behind you, the farm is in complete chaos. Dogs start barking, vehicles are being started, angry voices shout orders. They're going to chase us, the younger woman says, clearly terrified. Not if we stick together, you reply. We need to split up. We'll meet on the main road 6 miles north in 3 days. What if some of us don't make it there? The teenager asks. Then those who make it continue without the others, you reply. It's a brutal but necessary decision. A large group moves slowly and makes a lot of noise. Smaller groups have better chances of avoiding both pursuers and walkers. 7. The value of trust. You split into 3 groups. You with Marcos, the 2 women together, and the elderly man with the teenager. Each group goes in a different direction, planning to reunite at the agreed-upon point. You and Marcos move through the forest in tense silence. The tension isn't just from the pursuit. There are unresolved issues between the 2 of you. After an hour of walking, you stop to rest in a small clearing. You want an explanation? Marcos says. I don't need an explanation, you reply. I know exactly why you did it. No, you don't, he says. You look him in the eyes for the first time since you freed him. Then tell me. Marcos takes a deep breath. My daughter. I lied about looking for her. She died on the first day. I saw her being devoured. By our own neighbor. You remain silent, letting him continue. But I couldn't accept it. I spent weeks looking for her, even though I knew she was dead. When I met you, you gave me hope again. But then I realized I was just postponing the inevitable. So you decided to rob me? It wasn't planned. The morning I ran away, I woke up and looked at you sleeping so peacefully and felt so much envy. You still had hope. You still had the will to live. I just felt empty. Marcos wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. I thought that if I took your supplies, you'd be forced to stop caring too, just like me. It was selfish and cruel, and I knew it, even as I was doing it. And after that, I got completely lost. I stopped caring about everything. That's how they captured me. I didn't even try to run away when they found me. You process this information. The betrayal still hurts, but at least now you understand the motivations. And now, you ask? Now I don't know, he says. You saved me even after what I did. Why? Because a very brave person once told me that if you give up on being human, then the dead have already won. Marcos is silent for a long moment. She was right, he finally says. Yes, she was. You resume walking. The conversation has created a tenuous understanding between you, but complete trust will take time to rebuild. On the second day, you find signs that you're being pursued. Boot prints, still warm cigarette butts, the distant sound of engines. The farmers haven't given up the search. They're persistent, Marcos observes. They probably lost valuable slaves. They'll want them all back. You increase your pace, but you know you can't run indefinitely. Eventually, you'll have to face the pursuers or find a way to shake them off permanently. The opportunity comes in the form of a walker horde you discover feeding on vehicle wreckage on a road. There are at least 30 of them, maybe more. We can use this, you say. How? We'll lure our pursuers straight into them. It's a dangerous plan that requires perfect timing. You position yourselves on the other side of the horde, create enough noise to attract their attention, and then wait for the farmers to show up. It doesn't take long. 3 vehicles appear on the road, full of armed men. They see you on the other side of the horde and start shooting, completely ignoring the walkers. The shots immediately attract the attention of the dead. The entire horde turns towards the noise and starts moving towards the vehicles. The farmers realize the danger too late. They try to reverse, but the vehicles run into each other in the confusion. In minutes, the walkers are on them. You use the chaos to escape, knowing that the pursuit is definitely over. Bait. A new family. On the 3rd day, you arrive at the meeting point on the main road. The 2 women are already there, but there's no sign of the elderly man and the teenager. You wait until the end of the day, but they don't show up. We need to assume they're not coming, one of the women says sadly. They might have just been delayed, Marcos suggests. Or they might be dead, you reply pragmatically. Either way, we can't wait any longer. The group now consists of 4 people, you, Marcos, and 2 women named Helena and Rosa. Helena is a nurse who was working at a hospital when it all started. Rosa was a restaurant cook and has valuable knowledge about finding and preparing food. Where to now? Helena asks. North, you reply. Always north. There are rumors of a safe zone near the Tennessee border. Rumors? Rosa repeats, skeptical. Like the rumor of the survivor camp you went to check. Do you have a better suggestion? She shakes her head. Then we follow the rumors. It's better than staying still. The group starts walking again. Having other people changes the dynamic completely. There's more safety in numbers, but also more complications. Decisions have to be democratic, resources have to be shared, and different personalities create tension. Helena is too optimistic for the circumstances, always trying to see the bright side of situations. Rosa is the opposite, cynical and pragmatic to the extreme. Marcos is somewhere in the middle, still struggling with guilt and depression. And you find yourself in the role of unofficial leader, making decisions that affect everyone's lives. In the first week together, you face several challenges. A storm forces you to shelter in an abandoned church for 2 days. Rosa gets sick with what seems to be food poisoning. Marcos breaks his ankle in a fall and needs to be carried for hours. But there are also moments of humanity that you haven't experienced in months. Helena tells funny stories from her days as a nurse. Rosa teaches the group how to identify edible plants. Marcos reveals that he used to play the guitar and hum songs that help pass the time. Slowly, you begin to function as a cohesive unit, rather than just desperate individuals who happen to be together. This almost cost everyone's lives. You're crossing a small town when you are ambushed by another group of survivors. Unlike the farmers, these are real bandits. Dirty, violent, and completely unscrupulous. Drop the weapons, the leader yells. He's a large man with arms covered in tattoos and half his teeth missing. You have no choice but to obey. There are 8 of them against 4 of you, and they have you surrounded. What do you want? You ask. Everything, the leader replies, smiling. Food, water, weapons, and the women are coming with us too. No, you say automatically. The leader laughs. It's not a negotiation, friend. It's just how things work now. One of the bandits approaches Helena, clearly with bad intentions. She recoils, terror evident in her eyes. Something inside you breaks. Maybe it's the memory of Sarah. Maybe it's just the accumulated rage from weeks of loss and suffering. But you refuse to watch passively while innocent people are victimized again. You throw yourself at the nearest bandit, ripping his pistol away before he can react. Your first shot hits the man who is approaching Helena. Your second misses but causes enough confusion for Marcos to act. The former teacher, who you've never seen fight before, grabs a rock and hits one of the bandits on the head with surprising force. The man falls, blood gushing from a scalp wound. Helena and Rosa run for cover while you and Marcos fight desperately. Against impossible odds, you manage to take down 2 more bandits, but there are too many of them. A bullet whizzes past your ear. Another hits the ground at your feet. You're almost out of ammo and surrounded. Then you hear something that makes your heart sink. Groans. Lots of groans. The gunfire has attracted walkers. Lots of walkers. "Shit!" the bandits' leader yells, realizing the situation is quickly changing. A horde of at least 50 dead emerges from the side streets, attracted by the EIE. Noise. Now it's no longer bandits against survivors, it's everyone against the dead. "Truce!" you yell. "Everyone against them first!" The leader hesitates for just a second before agreeing. Survival trumps greed when walkers are involved. The 2 groups temporarily unite, forming a defensive circle as the dead approach from all directions. You find yourself fighting side by side with men who were trying to kill you minutes before. It's a brutal and chaotic battle. The sound of skulls cracking mixes with human screams and inhuman groans. Blood, both red and black, stains the streets. Helena uses a metal pole to keep the walkers at a distance, while Rosa attacks them with a hatchet she found. Marcos is using an iron bar as a club, his former academic life completely forgotten in the necessary violence. You're back to your most reliable strike, the axe. Every move is precise. Every hit is fatal. But there are too many of them, and you're quickly getting surrounded. "We need to get out." "Of here!" you yell over the chaos. "Where?" the bandit leader replies, taking down a walker with a shotgun. You see a hardware store with the door still intact. "There!" you yell. "Barricades!" The group fights its way towards the store, leaving behind a trail of walker bodies. You manage to reach the door and lock yourselves inside just moments before the horde reaches you. Inside, there are some useful tools and, more importantly, multiple exits. But the front windows show dozens of walkers, pressing against the glass. "We're going to be stuck here for hours," one of the bandits complains. "Better than being dead," Helena replies. Aye. Stupid, but respectable. The temporary truce creates a strange atmosphere. Mortal enemies now share the same small space, united only by the common threat outside. The bandits' leader, who introduces himself as Tank, reveals that his group was just trying to survive, just like you. His tactics are brutal, but effective in a brutal world. "You people are too nice," he observes. "You're going to die because of it." "Maybe," you reply, "but we'll die as people, not as animals." Tank laughs, but it's not a cruel sound. It's almost admiring. "I respect that," he says. "Stupid, but respectable." As the hours pass and the walkers slowly disperse, the 2 factions begin to get to know each other better. You discover that Tank was an army sergeant before the apocalypse. His methods are violent because he learned that hesitation means death. "How many good people have you known who died because they were too good?" he asks. The question hits deep. Sarah died because she was too good to leave others to suffer. The elderly man and the teenager probably died because they were too weak to keep up. Too many, you admit. And how many bad people have you known who are still alive? Also too many. Exactly. This world rewards cruelty and punishes kindness. That's just how things are now. That doesn't mean we have to accept it, Helena interrupts. If everyone turns into animals, then the dead have truly won. It's an echo of what Sarah said, and for a moment you feel a pang of pain for her loss. Tank seems to consider Helena's words. "Maybe," he finally says, "but kindness without strength is just weakness in disguise." The conversation is interrupted by the sound of breaking glass. The walkers have found a way to get in through the back of the store. "Time to go," you announce. The 2 groups work together to create an exit. Through the front door, now that most of the walkers have moved to the back. It's a coordinated maneuver that works perfectly. Once outside, Tank extends his hand to you. "It was a pleasure fighting alongside you," he says, "but now we're back to being enemies." "It doesn't have to be that way," Marcos says, surprising everyone. "What do you mean?" Tank asks. "Join us, or let us join you," Marcos continues. "We're stronger together." Tank considers this. "My people won't accept weak travelers, and you won't accept our methods." "Maybe we can find a middle ground," you suggest. "You teach us how to be tougher. We teach you how to be more human." Tank laughs, but this time there's a hint of possibility in the laugh. "Interesting. Very interesting." He turns to his men and has a whispered conversation with them. After a few minutes, he returns. "We have a deal," he says. 2-week trial run. If it works, we continue together. If it doesn't, we part ways without violence." "Agreed," you say, extending your hand. Tank shakes your hand with a force that almost breaks your bones. "Welcome to the most dysfunctional group in the apocalypse," he smiles. X. Leadership. The new combined group of 8 people presents unique challenges. Tank's methods include stealing from other survivors, taking supplies by force, and eliminating anyone who is seen as a threat. His men, Jake, Diesel, and Crow, are loyal to him but suspicious of anyone who shows weakness. On the other hand, Helena insists on helping any injured person they find, even if it means using precious resources. Rosa wants to share food with starving families. Marcos argues that maintaining moral standards is what separates you from the dead. You find yourself constantly mediating between the two extremes, trying to find solutions that keep the group together without completely compromising anyone's principles. The first major test comes when you find a family of 5, parents with 3 small children, hiding in a broken-down car. They haven't had food in days and are clearly desperate. "We pass right by them," Tank orders. "Not our problem." "They're children," Helena protests. "We can't just leave them to die." "We can and we will," Jake replies. "Saving them means fewer resources for us." The group is about to split when you have an idea. "What if they can pay us for help?" you ask. "With what?" Tank asks. "They clearly don't have anything." "Information," you reply. "They've traveled through this area. They know where to find supplies, where to avoid danger." You approach the family and explain the situation. The father, a middle-aged man named David, immediately agrees to share everything he knows in exchange for food and temporary protection. The information he provides is valuable. The location of an abandoned hospital with medical supplies, an area where bandits are active, and the safest path through the next 2 cities. Information is a resource like any other, you explain to Tank. Sometimes it's worth more than food or ammunition. Tank is impressed despite himself. "Smart," he says. "Very smart." The family travels with the group for 3 days, sharing information and even helping with simple tasks like collecting firewood and water. When you finally part ways, it's amicably, with both sides benefiting from the encounter. "Maybe you're onto something here," Jake admits reluctantly. "It's about finding value where others only see problems," you explain. As the weeks pass, the hybrid group begins to develop a unique dynamic. Tank teaches Helena and Rosa basic combat techniques. Helena teaches Tank's men basic medical care. Marcos, surprisingly, reveals a talent for strategy and planning. You become the unofficial leader, the person everyone looks to when difficult decisions need to be made. It's a heavy responsibility, but it's also comforting to know that you're not alone in the apocalypse. The group finds a temporary refuge in an old fire station. It's easily defensible, has useful supplies, and is located in an area with relatively few walkers. "We can stay here for a few weeks," Tank suggests. "Rest, replan, maybe make some improvements." It's tempting. After weeks on the road, the idea of a safe place to sleep and regular food is almost irresistible, but you've learned to be cautious about settling down anywhere. 2 weeks max, you say. After that, we keep moving. Why? Rosa asks. This place is good. Good places attract bad people, you explain. The longer we stay, the greater the chance of being discovered by hostile groups. Your concern proves prophetic. On the 10th night, you are attacked by a rogue military group that wants to take the station for themselves. The battle is intense and prolonged. The attackers have better equipment and training, but you know the layout of the building and can use that to your advantage. Helena is wounded in the arm by grenade shrapnel. Marcos takes a grazing shot to the leg, but the group works together with an efficiency that would have been impossible weeks ago. Tank and his men provide heavy firepower, while you coordinate defensive tactics. Helena continues treating the wounded, even while she's injured. Rosa uses her knowledge of the kitchen facilities to create improvised traps. When the smoke clears, the attackers are either dead or have fled, but the station is too damaged to continue being a safe refuge. Time to go, you announce, packing up the few remaining supplies. The road to reconstruction. Where to now? Diesel asks. It's the first time he's addressed you directly, a sign of respect earned through combat. East, you decide. There are rumors of an active military installation in North Carolina. More rumors? Rosa sighs. Rumors are all we have, you reply. But these come from multiple sources. There might be something real there. The group moves out the next morning, leaving behind another temporary refuge. But this time, you don't feel the same sadness you felt before. You have people you trust, people who trust you. In the apocalypse, that's more valuable than any physical place. The journey to North Carolina takes several weeks and tests the group in new ways. They cross territories controlled by warlords, navigate through entire cities taken by hordes, and survive a hailstorm that kills several walkers but almost kills them too. Each challenge makes them stronger as a unit. Tank learns to value human life beyond simple utility. Helena learns that sometimes violence is necessary to protect the innocent. Marcos overcomes his depression and guilt, finding purpose in helping the group. And you learn that leadership in the apocalypse isn't about having all the answers, but about making difficult decisions and living with the consequences. When you finally spot the high walls and communication towers of the military installation, you know you've arrived at something important. But whether it's salvation or just another kind of prison, you'll only find out when you pass through the gates. The high walls of the military installation rise before you like a promise of salvation or a sentence of perpetual imprisonment. Barbed wire snakes along the top of the concrete barriers, and watchtowers dot the perimeter like vigilant eyes that never blink. The sound of generators echoes through the gray morning, an almost forgotten luxury in the post-apocalyptic world. You approach slowly, hands visible, and weapons lowered. Through the binoculars Tank carries, you can see soldiers in the towers, living people, in uniform, organized. In months, you haven't seen so much structure in one place. Halt! A magnified voice echoes from the loudspeakers. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. You take a step forward, hands raised. We are survivors, you say. 8 people looking for safe refuge. There's a long pause. You can see movement in the towers, figures communicating through radios. Approach slowly. Keep your weapons on the ground and your hands visible. The group obeys, leaving their weapons in a pile 50 yards from the main gate. It's a huge risk. If these soldiers are hostile, you'll be completely defenseless. But you've come too far to turn back now. The heavy metal gate opens with a mechanical groan that echoes like a metallic wail. 6 soldiers emerge, rifles pointed but not threateningly. They look well-fed, clean, professional. A stark contrast to the groups of survivors you've encountered in recent weeks. I am Colonel Harrison, the leader introduces himself. He's a tall, middle-aged man with militarily cut gray hair and eyes that have seen too much. This is Fort Griffin Military Base. Before we allow entry, we need some information. Of course, you reply. What do you need to know? First, he says, has anyone been bitten or scratched by the infected in the last 14 days? Everyone shakes their heads. It's true. You've been too careful to allow that kind of exposure. Second, do you have medical supplies, food, or ammunition to contribute to the community? Tank replies, some basic medical supplies, limited ammunition for rifles and pistols, and knowledge of safe travel routes. Third, Harrison continues, are you willing to follow military orders, contribute to community work, and defend this installation if necessary? Yes, you reply without hesitation. After months on the road, the promise of safety and structure is, worth almost any sacrifice. Harrison studies each face for a moment, as if he could read intentions through expressions. Very well, he says. Enter, but know that you are under constant observation for the first 30 days. Any suspicious behavior or violation of the rules will result in immediate expulsion. In the apocalypse, second chances are a luxury we cannot afford ourselves. The gate closes behind you with a final sound that is simultaneously comforting and claustrophobic. You are safe, but also trapped, tuned, the nature of a collapse. The base is impressive. Well-maintained concrete buildings, a working power system, running water, luxuries you had forgotten existed. Organized gardens grow between the buildings, guarded by smaller fences against wild animals. There are even children playing in a small park in the center of the installation. Current population, 243 people, Harrison explains as he leads you through the base. 62 active military. The rest are civilians we found, or who arrived like you. We have doctors, engineers, teachers, farmers. We are trying to maintain a functional society here. 3 weeks after leaving the military base, you face the cruel reality that everyone feared but no one verbalized. Rosa is dying. The cough that started as a simple cold has evolved into something more sinister. She's spitting up blood in the mornings, and her strength is visibly decreasing every day. Helena does what she can with the few medical supplies you manage to take from the base, but without proper antibiotics or diagnostic equipment, she's essentially watching a friend waste away. Pneumonia, Helena whispers to you during a break, while Rosa sleeps fitfully leaning against a tree. Her breathing is harsh and irregular. Without adequate treatment, Helena says, she has days, maybe a week. You are camped in a small clearing on the slopes of the West Virginia mountains. The air here is cleaner than in the dead cities, but it's also cold. The nights are getting brutal, and you don't have adequate equipment for the approaching winter. Marcos has developed a silent depression since Rosa got worse. He blames himself for not having found a safe community sooner, as if geography and destiny were his personal responsibility. Tank and Crow maintain constant vigilance, but even they are starting to show signs of desperation. It's on the fourth night that everything changes. You are awakened by the sound of human voices echoing through the forest. They aren't the screams of desperation you've grown accustomed to hearing, nor the aggressive military commands of the base. They're normal conversations, almost homey. Tank moves silently to investigate, returning 15 minutes later with an expression you haven't seen in months. Genuine hope. There's a community 2 miles from here, he whispers. Real families, children playing, organized gardens. How many people, you ask? Hard to say in the dark, but at least 50, maybe more, he says. Defenses? Low walls, mainly against wild animals, some observation towers, but nothing militarized. It seems peaceful. Helena looks at Rosa, who is sleeping restlessly. Her breathing is ragged and irregular. She needs real medical care, and soon. It could be a trap, Marcos warns, but his voice lacks its usual conviction. Everything can be a trap, you reply, but Rosa will die if we don't try. 3. Cooperation. The next morning, you approach the community openly, hands visible and weapons lowered. It's a desperate gamble, but desperation has been your constant companion for so long that it feels almost familiar. What you find challenges everything you've learned about survival in the apocalypse. The community is called Haven Valley, and it is exactly what the name suggests, a refuge. Built in a natural valley protected by mountains on 3 sides, the community has developed a completely different approach to surviving the post-apocalyptic world. Instead of high walls and watchtowers, they have community gardens and craft workshops. Instead of armed patrols, they have work groups that maintain the infrastructure. Instead of a rigid military hierarchy, they have a democratic council that makes decisions by consensus. How do you survive? You ask Margaret Chen, a 60-year-old woman who serves as one of the community's elected leaders. Cooperation, she replies simply, and geographical luck. She explains that the isolated location protected them from the first waves of infection. When the walkers arrived, the community was already organized and prepared. They developed techniques to silently eliminate small groups of infected and created early warning systems for larger hordes. But most importantly, Margaret continues, is that we decided from the beginning that we were not going to let the apocalypse turn us into monsters. Many communities survive by becoming brutal. We survived by holding on to our humanity. Rosa is immediately taken to what they call the medical center, which is actually a converted house with medical equipment recovered from abandoned hospitals. To Helena's surprise, they have a real doctor, Dr. James Porter, who was visiting the area when the apocalypse started and decided to stay. Bacterial pneumonia, he confirms after examining Rosa. Curable with the right antibiotics, which we fortunately have. It's the first good news you've received in weeks. While Rosa recovers, you explore Haven Valley and get to know its inhabitants. They are retired teachers, farmers, engineers, artists, ordinary people who came together to create something extraordinary under impossible circumstances. There's a school where children of various ages learn not only academic subjects but also practical survival skills. There are workshops where artisans create tools, clothes, and even musical instruments. There's a community library where books saved from dead cities are carefully preserved. It's surreal, Marcos comments, watching children playing in a small, well-maintained park. It's like the apocalypse never happened here. Oh, it happened, Margaret replies, overhearing the comment. We lost a lot of people in the beginning. Hunger, disease, walker attacks. But we learned that survival isn't just about not dying, it's about keeping alive the reason why life is worth living. Helena quickly integrates into the medical team, her experience valued but not exploited. Tank and Crow find purpose on the community security team, which operates more like park rangers than soldiers. Marcos is invited to teach at the school, a job that visibly transforms him. And you find yourself on the planning council, helping the community prepare for future challenges. But for the first time in months, these challenges seem manageable rather than insurmountable. Rosa makes a full recovery. In 2 weeks, the cough disappears, her color returns, and she goes back to cooking. This time, for an entire community that appreciates her culinary skills. 14th, a new kind of revolution. It is during a community council meeting, 6 weeks after you arrive, that you face your first major crisis in Haven Valley. A group of survivors arrives at the community's gates, 23 people in desperate conditions, including 8 children. They are fleeing something they describe as bad soldiers who enslave entire communities. It has to be Harrison, Tank murmurs when he hears the description. It has to be. Apparently, after you left the military base, internal tensions finally exploded. A group of civilians tried a revolution that was brutally suppressed. The survivors fled, but Harrison sent patrols to recapture them. They're a day behind us, the refugee leader explains. Maybe 20 soldiers, armored vehicles, they won't stop. The community goes into crisis. Haven Valley was built on principles of peace and cooperation. They have some weapons for defense against walkers, but nothing that can face an organized military force. We can hand over the refugees, one council member reluctantly suggests, to avoid conflict. Absolutely not, Margaret responds firmly. That's not who we are. Then we fight, Tank clarifies. And we probably die. It's you who proposes a third option. We evacuate. Total silence in the meeting. The whole community? Dr. Porter asks. The whole community. Temporarily, you say. There are caves in the mountains that can shelter everyone. We leave a few people behind to make it look like life is continuing normally, but we hide the main population. And then? Then we wait. Harrison can't keep patrols in the mountains indefinitely. Eventually, he'll have to go back to base or find easier targets. It's a risky plan that requires perfect coordination, but the community votes unanimously in its favor. The next 18 hours are a whirlwind of organized activity. Essential supplies are packed and transported to the caves. Farm animals are moved to hidden pastures. Evidence of the real population is carefully erased. You, Tank, Marcos, and 2 local volunteers stay behind to maintain the facade. You position yourselves strategically around the community, creating the impression of normal activity while everyone else hides in the mountains. Harrison arrives with 20 soldiers and 3 armored vehicles, exactly as the refugees predicted. You watch him through binoculars as he examines the seemingly peaceful, too small community. You overhear him mumbling to his lieutenants, "Not worth the effort." They conduct a superficial search, interrogate the 5 of you about recent refugees, and when you deny any knowledge, they decide to continue searching elsewhere. "Are you sure you haven't seen anyone?" Harrison asks you directly. "I'm sure," you lie without hesitation. "We're just trying to live in peace here." Harrison studies you for a long moment, as if he recognizes something familiar. Then he shakes his head and returns to the vehicles. "These aren't the refugees we're looking for," he announces to his men. "We continue north." You watch the military vehicles disappear on the mountain road, and only then do you allow yourselves to breathe again. The community returns from the caves 2 hours later, and the celebration is silent but profound. They have saved not only the refugees, but also preserved their own way of life. That night, during a special council meeting, Margaret makes an announcement that changes everything. "You have proven today that you belong here," she says, looking at you and your group. "But more than that, you have helped us discover something important about ourselves." "What?" Helena asks. "That our community is strong enough to defend itself, but also compassionate enough to protect others. We want to formalize this." She explains that the community has voted to establish a refuge network, a coordinated system to help other survivor groups find safety and establish their own cooperative communities. "You know the outside world better than any of us," Margaret continues. "We want you to lead this effort. It's a proposal that completely transforms your perspective on the future. Instead of simply surviving day to day, you would have the opportunity to help rebuild civilization based on principles of cooperation instead of domination." Tank, surprisingly, is the first to accept. "I spent months thinking that brutality was the only way to survive," he says. "You showed, me I was wrong. I want to help other people learn that too." One by one, everyone agrees. Theme: the Alice of Haven Valley. In the following months, you establish contact with survivor groups throughout the region. Some are hostile and need to be avoided. Others are desperate and need immediate help. A few are like you were, good people trying to maintain their humanity in an inhuman world. Rosa establishes a food exchange network, teaching other communities about sustainable agriculture and food preservation. Helena creates a basic medical training program that saves countless lives. Marcos develops an educational system that can be adapted for different survivor groups. Tank and Crow train security teams that focus on protection rather than aggression, and you coordinate everything, using the leadership skills forged in months of desperate survival for something much more constructive. 2 years after arriving in Haven Valley, the network includes 17 cooperative communities spread across 3 states. It's not much compared to the pre-apocalyptic population, but it's a real start to rebuilding civilization. It's during an annual network meeting that you receive news that closes an important circle in your journey. A group of refugees from Harrison's military base has arrived at the network's southernmost community. Apparently, the base finally collapsed completely when the remaining civilians successfully rebelled. Harrison died during the fighting, and the survivors dispersed. Among the refugees is someone you recognize, Sergeant Williams, the man who led your first expedition from the base. You were right, he says when you meet. Brutality can work in the short term, but it eventually consumes itself. Communities like this, he gestures to Haven Valley, are the real future. Williams joins the network, bringing valuable military knowledge that is adapted for defensive and logistical purposes. His experience helps protect the cooperative communities against bandit groups without turning them into militarized fortresses. In the third year, something extraordinary happens. You make contact with a similar network that is developed independently on the West Coast. Through long-distance radio communications, you discover that the concept of cooperative communities is spreading organically across the entire continent. It turns out people are naturally collaborative when they're not scared, Dr. Porter observes during a discussion about the phenomenon. The apocalypse forced us to be brutal for a while, but our true nature always comes back. It's a revelation that completely redefines how you understand human survival. For months, you believed that the apocalypse had revealed humanity's true bestial nature. But now you realize that it was just a phase, a traumatic reaction to extreme circumstances. True human nature, you discover, is the capacity to adapt, learn, and eventually choose cooperation over competition whenever possible. In the fourth year, you face your biggest challenge yet. A gigantic horde of walkers, estimated at over 1,000 infected, is moving slowly through the region. It's the kind of threat that could destroy all the communities you've helped build, but instead of panic, there's coordination. The 17 communities work together, sharing resources and strategies. Evacuation groups are organized, escape routes are mapped, and supplies are redistributed. And when the horde finally arrives, it finds not isolated, vulnerable communities, but a coordinated network that skillfully diverts it into a remote gorge where it can be contained and eventually eliminated without significant human losses. It's the final proof that the cooperative model is not only morally superior, but also practically more effective for long-term survival. 15 teens. A legacy of life. 5 years after arriving in Haven Valley, you are sitting on a porch you helped build yourself, watching children play in a park that didn't exist when you arrived. Rosa is in the community kitchen, teaching teenagers how to make preserves for the winter. Helena is at the clinic, treating a farmer who broke his arm, a routine injury that could have once been fatal. Marcos is at the school, where he is now the principal, telling a class of fascinated children about what the world was like before the apocalypse. Tank and Crow have just returned from a 2-week mission, helping a new community establish its defenses. It's not the world you lost. It never will be. But it's a world worth living in. And most importantly, a world you helped create. As the sun sets behind the mountains, painting the sky with colors that remain beautiful even in a world changed forever, you reflect on the journey that brought you here. It started with utter despair, waking up alone in a dark basement, convinced that the world had ended. It passed through devastating loss, painful betrayal, and impossible choices that almost destroyed you. There were moments when giving up seemed not only reasonable but inevitable. But there was also Sarah, reminding you that holding on to humanity was more important than holding on to life. There was Marcos, showing that people can change and grow even in the most difficult circumstances. There was Tank, proving that even the toughest can learn compassion. And there was Haven Valley, demonstrating that cooperation is not only possible in the apocalypse, it is the key to thriving after it. You didn't just survive the Walking Dead apocalypse. You helped build something better in the ashes of the old world. And that, in the end, is the only victory that truly matters. 10 years have passed since that dark morning when you woke up in the cold basement in rural Georgia. A whole decade of change that transformed not only you, but the very concept of what it means to rebuild a civilization. Haven Valley now houses over 500 people. What started as a small mountain community has evolved into something that looks like a small town from the 20th century, but with wisdom forged by the apocalypse. The houses are more robust, the gardens are more efficient, the defenses are smarter. Every building, every system, every tradition has been tested against the brutal reality of survival. You are standing on top of the communication tower, a 60-foot structure that Marcos designed and Tank supervised the construction of. From here, you can see the full extent of the transformation that has happened. The cooperative network has grown beyond the most optimistic expectations. 63 communities are now part of what is officially called the Free Valleys Alliance. Each one maintains its autonomy and unique culture, but they all share resources, knowledge, and mutual protection. The system works so well that other similar networks on the West Coast and in the Midwest have sent ambassadors to study and replicate the model. The numbers from the last census are in, Helena announces, climbing the tower, ladder with a folder of documents. At 45, she is now the regional medical coordinator, responsible for the health of more than 12,000 people spread across the allied communities. And? You ask, already knowing from her expression that it's good news. Positive population growth for the 7th consecutive year, she says. Infant mortality rate below 2%. Life expectancy returning to pre-apocalyptic standards in established communities. These are statistics that would have seemed impossible a decade ago. In the first year after the collapse, the mortality rate was almost 50%. Now children are born in clean hospitals, grow up in organized schools, and play in safe parks. What about the new contacts? You ask, referring to the other reason for her visit. 3 groups this month, she replies. 1 from Tennessee, 2 from North Carolina. The group from Tennessee is especially interesting. They've developed hydroponic techniques that could revolutionize our winter agriculture. The exchange of knowledge has become the most valuable currency between the communities. Each group that survived the apocalypse has developed unique solutions to specific problems. When these solutions are shared, everyone benefits exponentially. There's also this, Helena continues, handing you a letter with an official seal. It arrived by the postal system this morning. The postal system is one of the innovations you are most proud of. A network of horse-drawn messengers and radio stations that connects all the allied communities. It's primitive compared to pre-apocalyptic systems, but it works with remarkable efficiency. The letter is from Washington, D.C., or rather, what's left of it. In the last 3 years, survivor groups in the capital have started organizing around the remains of the federal government. They are trying to re-establish some form of national authority, and they apparently want the Free Valleys Alliance to send representatives to a national reconstruction convention. What do you think? Helena asks. You consider carefully. National politics was what led to the problems that caused the apocalypse in the first place, but it also represents the possibility of coordination on an even larger scale. I'll talk to the council tonight, you decide. But my instinct is that we should participate with caution. Always the cautious diplomat, Helena smiles. It's true. Over the years, you've become the Alliance's main negotiator, the person other. Communities look to when they need to resolve conflicts or establish trade agreements. It's a role you never expected to play, but one that fits naturally with the leadership skills you developed during the first desperate years. That afternoon, you walk down the main street of Haven Valley, a road paved with local stones that connects the community's main buildings. Craft shops sell locally made products. A restaurant serves meals prepared with fresh ingredients from the community gardens. There's even a bookstore where hand-copied manuscripts preserve knowledge that would otherwise have been lost. In the central plaza, you find Tank teaching a group of teenagers basic self-defense techniques. At 52, he's leaner than he was, with completely gray hair, but he still moves with the precision of a professional soldier. How are the new recruits? You ask, watching the young people practice disarming movements. Good, Tank replies, wiping sweat from his forehead. But I hope they never need to use this for real. It's a sentiment shared by everyone. The last major military threat the Alliance faced was 3 years ago, when a group of well-organized bandits tried to establish a forced protectorate over several smaller communities. The Alliance's coordinated response was so effective that the bandits dispersed without a single shot being fired. Tank, you say, deciding to share the news. A letter arrived from Washington. They want us to participate in a national convention. Tank stops moving and looks directly at you. Federal government? He asks. Something like that, you reply. Groups of survivors trying to rebuild national structures. Tank considers this for a long moment. Could be good, or it could be the beginning of someone trying to control us again. That's why we're going with caution, you say. I'll go with you, Tank declares, if we go. It's comforting to know that even after a decade, the bonds forged in the worst moments remain intact. Later that night, you stop in front of the house that Marcos built on the edge of the community. It's an impressive 2-story structure with a personal library that rivals anything that existed before the apocalypse. Marcos has become the Alliance's unofficial historian, meticulously documenting not only the events of the apocalypse, but also the innovative solutions that each community has developed. Working late again? You ask, finding him on the porch with a pile of manuscripts. Finishing volume 3, he replies, adjusting the reading glasses that Rosa made for him using lenses salvaged from an abandoned optician's office. History of cooperative agriculture in the post-collapse era. Sounds fascinating, you say, and it actually is. Marcos's volumes have become essential manuals for new communities. His detailed instructions on everything from water purification to conflict resolution have saved countless lives. I heard about Washington, Marcos continues. What do you think? I think we need to go, but as observers, not as subordinates, you reply. I agree, he says. We've learned that local autonomy is essential. Any national system needs to respect that. It's a lesson that was learned the hard way. 2 years ago, one of the Allied communities almost split when a group of purists tried to impose uniform rules on all the others. The crisis was only resolved when they reaffirmed the fundamental principle: voluntary cooperation, never coercion. Next morning, the Alliance Council meets to discuss the Washington proposal. The council has grown from 5 people to 21, representing all regions of the network. The meetings take place in a specially built circular room where no seat is more prominent than another. Rosa presides over the meeting. At 53, she has become one of the Alliance's most respected leaders, known for her ability to find practical solutions to complex problems. Her near-fatal experience with pneumonia made her value life even more, and that perspective is reflected in her decisions. The question before us, she begins, is whether we should participate in this national convention in Washington. Let's hear arguments from both sides. Margaret Chen, now 70 but still mentally sharp, argues in favor of participation. Isolation is not a long-term strategy. If others are trying to rebuild national structures, we need to have a voice in that process. Otherwise, decisions will be made without our consultation. The other side, Jonathan Rivers, a leader of the Southern mining community, expresses concerns. Every time we get involved with larger structures, we end up losing autonomy. The military base, other groups that tried to incorporate us. Why would this time be different? The debate continues for 3 hours, with valid arguments from both sides. Finally, it's Dr. Porter who suggests a middle ground solution. What if we send a small delegation with a limited mandate? He asks. They go to observe and report, not to make commitments. That way, we can evaluate the situation without committing ourselves. The proposal is approved by 16 votes to 5. You are chosen to lead the delegation, accompanied by Tank, Helena, and 2 representatives from other regions. The journey to Washington takes 5 days, traveling from community to community through the support network you helped build. It's a trip that would have been impossible alone, but becomes almost luxurious with the cooperative hospitality system. Each night, you sleep in comfortable beds, eat hot meals, and talk with local leaders about the unique challenges of their regions. It's a continuous education about the diversity and resilience of post-apocalyptic communities. Washington, D.C. is a visual shock. Much of the city is in ruins, but the center has been partially rebuilt by organized survivor groups. The capital serves as the convention headquarters, its famous steps now guarded by well-organized militias from various factions. The convention brings together representatives from 47 different groups from across the country, agricultural communities from the plains, fortified city-states from the Great Lakes, and even representatives from ships that have created floating communities along the coasts. In the first 2 days, the presentations reveal the incredible diversity of solutions that different groups have developed. The plains farmers have created irrigation systems that can work without electricity. The city-states have developed industries that produce essential tools and medicines. The coastal communities have established maritime trade networks that connect survivors along thousands of miles. But it also becomes clear that there are fundamental divisions about how to proceed. One group, led by a former senator named Richardson, wants to re-establish the federal government with structures similar to those that existed before the apocalypse. They argue that only centralized authority can coordinate enough resources to face large-scale threats. Another group, led by a coalition of techno-libertarian communities, wants a completely decentralized system based on voluntary agreements between autonomous entities. They see any central authority as inevitably corrupt. There are also militaristic factions that want to establish a permanent national security state and isolationist groups that are participating in the convention only to ensure they are left in peace. It's like watching history repeat itself, Helena observes during a break between sessions. The same ideological divisions that existed before the apocalypse. With one important difference, you reply. This time everyone knows what happens when the systems fail completely. On the third day, Richardson approaches the Free Valleys Alliance delegation. "I've heard about your success," he says with the political smile you've learned to distrust. 63 cooperative communities is impressive. Exactly. The kind of organization we need on a national scale. "Thank you," you reply cautiously. "I'd like to propose something," he says. "If you support our proposal for a reconstituted federal government, I can guarantee that the Free Valleys Alliance will receive special status, regional autonomy under federal protection." Tank moves almost imperceptibly closer, and you know he's having the same flashbacks of the military base as you. "What kind of protection?" you ask. "Military," he replies. "Mainly against external threats, hostile groups, infected hordes. In exchange, you would contribute a percentage of resources to the central government. Say, 20% of agricultural production. It's a proposal that sounds all too familiar. Protection in exchange for submission. Limited autonomy under central supervision." "We'll consider it," you say diplomatically. That night, the Alliance delegation meets in the small room you are sharing. "It's the military base on a larger scale," Tank declares, bluntly. "I agree," Helena adds. "The language is more polite, but the concept is the same. They want control." But one of the other delegates argues, "It also offers real benefits. National coordination could solve problems that individual communities cannot face." It's a debate that extends into the early hours of the morning. Everyone sees merit in both perspectives, but in the end, it's shared experience that decides. We vote to reject any proposal that compromises the fundamental autonomy of the communities, you announce the next morning. But instead of simply rejecting, you make a counter-proposal. On the fourth day of the convention, you speak before the full assembly. The Free Valleys Alliance proposes an alternative model, you begin. National cooperation based on specific voluntary agreements, not on permanent centralized authority. We propose a national network of autonomous communities that cooperate on specific issues. Defense against external threats, sharing of medical and technological knowledge, coordination of resources during emergencies. But they maintain full control over their own internal structures. Instead of a government that governs communities, you conclude, we propose an association of communities that governs itself. The proposal generates intense debate. Some reject it as naive and unviable. Others see it as the natural evolution of lessons learned during the apocalypse. Surprisingly, it's a representative from the coastal communities who provides crucial support. Our experience at sea taught us that ships work best in coordinated fleets, he declares, but each captain must maintain authority over his own ship. The Alliance's proposal applies the same principle to land. At the end of the convention, 3 different models received significant support: Richardson's reconstituted federal government, the total decentralized system of the Libertarians, and the cooperative network proposed by the Alliance. Instead of forcing a single decision, the convention decides to allow different regions to experiment with different models, with annual meetings to share results and potentially converge on better solutions. It's a better result than we expected, Helena comments during the trip back. I still think it's a mistake to get involved with national politics, Tank adds, but without his usual conviction. Maybe, you reply. But if we don't get involved, other people will make decisions that affect us anyway. The trip back to Haven Valley takes a week, not 5 days, because you stop in several communities to share news of the convention. The reaction is mixed, but generally positive. Most local leaders appreciate that the Alliance maintained its principles while remaining engaged with larger developments. 6 months later, the results of the different models begin to become clear. Richardson's reconstituted federal government faces constant rebellions from communities that resent taxes and regulations. The completely decentralized system of the Libertarians struggles to coordinate defense against a large horde of infected that moves through their regions. The Alliance's cooperative network, meanwhile, grows from 63 to 89 communities, including several that previously followed other models. It seems that voluntary cooperation really works better, Rosa observes during a council meeting. For now, you reply, ever cautious. Success creates its own challenges. And you are right. The rapid growth of the Alliance creates new problems. Cultural differences between distant regions cause misunderstandings. Some communities begin to feel exploited by others that contribute less. The pressure to centralize more authority to resolve disputes efficiently grows. It is during a particularly difficult crisis, a dispute over water rights between agricultural and industrial communities, that you have an important realization. The problem isn't that cooperation doesn't work, you say, to Helena as you walk through the Haven Valley Gardens on a starry night. It's that cooperation is a continuous process, not a final state. What do you mean? She asks. We thought that if we created the right system, it would work automatically. But people change, circumstances change, new challenges appear, you say. Cooperation only works as long as people actively work to keep it working. It's a lesson that completely transforms how the Alliance approaches problems. Instead of looking for permanent solutions, they focus on continuous processes of negotiation, adaptation, and renewal. 17. A new dawn. 15 years after the apocalypse, you are once again on the communication tower, but this time you are not alone. A dozen young adults, people who were children when you arrived in Haven Valley, are participating in a workshop on community leadership. The most important question any leader can ask, you say to them, is not, how do I solve this problem? But rather, how do I help my community solve this problem? A 20-year-old woman named Sarah, named in honor of the woman you could never forget, raises her hand. But what if the community makes the wrong decision? She asks. Then you learn from the mistake and try again, you reply. Leadership isn't about always being right. It's about creating conditions where groups can learn and grow together. It's a philosophy forged in years of experience, tested against failures and successes, and refined through countless conversations with people wiser than you. After the workshop, you walk to the cemetery on the west side of Haven Valley. It's a small but well-maintained place where residents who have died since the community's founding are remembered. There's a special section for lost heroes, people who died before the community was established but whose sacrifice made its existence possible. Sarah's name is engraved on a simple stone of local granite, along with hundreds of others. Diesel, the refugees who couldn't reach the meeting points, people whose names you never knew but whose deaths helped teach lessons that saved others. We made it, you whisper to the stone. Not in the way we imagined, but we made it. A gentle breeze moves the leaves of the trees planted around the cemetery, trees that grew from seeds collected from the forests where you hid during the desperate early years. 20 years after the apocalypse, Haven Valley is no longer an isolated mountain community. It is the center of a network that extends over half the continent, connecting more than 200 autonomous communities in a complex tapestry of voluntary cooperation. You are no longer the leader of the delegation or the regional coordinator. At 62, you've passed these responsibilities on to younger people with fresh energy and innovative ideas. Your role now is what Helena affectionately calls the consultative sage, someone who offers historical perspective and advice when asked but who doesn't make decisions for others. It's a role that fits perfectly with who you have become. Today is a special day. Haven Valley is hosting the 20th annual Free Valleys Alliance meeting, where representatives from all communities gather to share innovations, resolve disputes, and plan for the future. But more important to you personally is that it is also the day the first Survivors Memorial will be inaugurated. A structure dedicated to all the people who died during the initial years of the apocalypse, whose sacrifices made the reconstruction that came after possible. Tank, now 68 and officially retired, helped design the memorial. It's a curved wall of local stone where thousands of names are engraved, not just of known heroes, but of ordinary people who chose to help others even when they had very little to give. Are you going to give the inauguration speech? Tank asks as you inspect the final details of the construction. No, you reply. Sarah, the young woman, is going to do it. It's time for the next generation to tell our story. Sarah Chen Williams, adopted by Margaret Chen and raised with the surname Williams in honor of the sergeant who joined the Alliance years ago, grew up hearing stories of the early years. But she also represents something new. A generation that never knew the pre-apocalyptic world, that grew up assuming that cooperation and community are normal. During the inauguration ceremony, Sarah speaks to a crowd of over 1,000 people gathered in Haven Valley's Central Plaza. These names represent more than death, she says, gesturing towards the memorial. They represent choices. In every moment during the darkest years, these people chose to help instead of harm, to protect instead of exploit, to build instead of destroy. Two words echo through the loudspeakers powered by solar panels. Technology that was lost and rediscovered through cooperation between communities. We are their legacy, and our responsibility is to ensure that the choices we make today create an even better world for those who come after us. After the ceremony, there's a community party with music, dancing, and food from dozens of different culinary traditions. It's the kind of multicultural celebration that would be familiar to anyone from the pre-apocalyptic world, but with one crucial difference. Every person here personally knows what it costs to keep a community functioning. As the night progresses, you find yourself sitting at a table with your original companions, Tank, Helena, Rosa, Marcos, and Crow. All older, grayer, but still clearly recognizable as the people who met in a collapsing world and chose to trust each other. Any regrets? Rosa asks, a question that has become a tradition at gatherings like this. Just one, Marcos replies. I wish Diesel were here to see this. He is, Crow says softly. In the memorial, in the stories, in the lessons we learned from his loss. Helena raises her glass of wine made from grapes grown in Haven Valley's gardens. A toast to the dead who taught us how to live, and to the living who chose to honor their sacrifices. Everyone drinks in respectful silence. When the party finally ends, you walk alone to the communication tower one last time. From up there, you can see the lights of the houses scattered across the valley, each one representing families living in safety, children growing up with hope, adults working for something greater than simple survival. In the surrounding mountains, other lights blink, signals from allied communities, transmitting messages of goodwill and status updates. The network extends as far as your eyes can see and far beyond, connecting millions of people in a tapestry of conscious cooperation. It's not the world that existed before the apocalypse. It's something new, forged by the hardest lessons humanity has ever faced, tempered by the understanding that civilization is something that must be carefully cultivated and protected. You think of Sarah, the first Sarah, who died 20 years ago, but whose words still echo through generations. If you give up on being human, then the dead have already won. The dead did not win. Humanity not only survived the apocalypse, it emerged wiser, more compassionate, more aware of the value of cooperation and community. As the stars shine above, the same stars that offered comfort during lonely nights decades ago, you finally allow yourself to feel something you haven't experienced in a very long time. Complete satisfaction. You didn't just survive. You helped ensure that humanity not only survived but prospered. And tomorrow, a new generation will continue building on the foundations you established, creating wonders you can barely imagine. The apocalypse is over. The reconstruction is complete.